Today is May 9th, 2003, and in the High Court of the BBB, we are revising the case of Frankenstein v. Monster. On this day, we'll be determining the fate of Victor Frankenstein on the basis of the monster's alleged claims of abandonment and unjust punishment. To begin, let's take a background of this case.
Walton, a sailor sailing near the North Pole, has his boat stuck in the ice and wants a friend to come for company. Victor Frankenstein arrives and tells his story. Victor was born in Geneva with one brother, William, one adopted sister, Elizabeth, for him to marry later on, one blood sister, Justine. Victor leaves to study natural philosophy, alchemy, and chemistry at the University of Ingolstadt. Victor becomes really focused in his studies and develops an obsession with creating life. He sews body parts together and brings it to life. The monster escapes while Victor is gone. After a short time, Victor learns that his brother William is dead, and he assumes that the monster is responsible. However, Victor's sister is blamed for the brother's death, and she is killed for her crime. To escape his sorrow, Victor goes on vacation to the Alps, but finds a monster in the mountains. The monster explains how he has learned the way of man by watching a family in a cottage for some time, and also describes how they beat him when they saw him. The monster explains how he killed William to get Victor's attention, because the monster is lonely and would like a mate. Victor agrees to make a companion for the monster and leaves. Victor's friend Henry is also killed by the monster. So Victor decides not to make the companion monster because he thinks that the two monsters will wreak havoc upon humanity. Victor returns to Geneva to get married to his adopted sister, but the monster kills her after the wedding. Because of this, Victor chases the monster all the way to the North Pole. There, Victor meets Walton, tells him his story, and dies. The monster cries over his maker's death and dies as well.
Just before the start of the case, a quick advertisement.
It's another beautiful morning here at Ingolstadt University, where we offer a wide variety of courses. Come, let's take a look at all of the varieties we have. Here at Ingolstadt University, our students work very hard in courses such as math and history. But the most esteemed program that we have here at our university is, of course, the Life Science program. Let's go down to the lab and have a look. Here at Ingolstadt University, our amazing Life Science program has created something truly unique, an opportunity for students to work hard and viciously over a large amount of years to create something larger than what they are together. Recently, our famed student, Victor Frankenstein, has been creating a clone of another human. We don't know if it's going to work, but we sure hope it does. Here, take a look at our progress so far. As you can see, the measurements are very exact. Let's see if it works. Bummer. Guess we'll have to try again soon.
In case you're wondering, that was an arm spasm.
What the fuck? Ingolstadt University. Rethink possible. Let's begin the case now. Mr. Bott, you may bring up your first witness to the panel.
I would like to call my first witness to the stand, the monster. If you could please have a seat in the witness podium. Mr. Monster, would you like to give the people in the room a brief recollection of the events that happened to you between the years of 1818 and 1820?
Okay, let's start when I was born. When I got to know that I was alive, I started out on the road. I longed for food and for shelter every day of my miserable beginnings. I had nothing, and I did not even know how to communicate or how to live this life. Every time I came into contact with people, they would scream at me and beat me. At that time, I did not understand why I was being tortured so much. Those days, I used to look up at the black sky in the night. The dark sky, filled with thousands of stars, would soothe me and motivate me to live longer. As I began to figure things out, I stumbled upon a cottage.
This is what I want to hear. How did the contact with the cottagers affect your mental state?
At first, I loved the cottagers. They always showed signs of friendliness and love. I learned how to speak their language. I started off with small sentences and words, and it advanced my knowledge along the way. However, it broke my heart when they beat me after I longed to meet them. Felix attacked me, and that's when I understood the cruel nature of humans.
Your Honor, this is why Mr. Frankenstein should not be found guilty of creating the monster. Clearly, everyone that he came into contact with was too horrified when they saw him. It would have been much too difficult for Mr. Frankenstein to keep up with both his work and the monster at the same time.
I object, Your Honor. It is not Mr. Monster's fault why he's so ugly. After all, Frankenstein was the one who created him.
Hey! Settle down, Mr. Monster, you may return to the sands. Mr. Matcha, you can now examine a witness of your choice.
Thank you, Judge. I would like to call Mr. Victor Frankenstein up to the podium, please.
Please have a seat.
Mr. Frankenstein, would you please tell us about your studies and how this affected your well-being and actions?
So, starting when I was a young boy, reading and absorbing knowledge from as many sources as possible was my hobby. Leading into college, I was just discovering the vast and endless ideas and sciences that exist in the world. Learning was like a drug to me, and I could not stop taking it. One of these days, as a boy, I stumbled upon some of the books from an author named Cornelius Agrippa. His works were fascinating and led me to pursue the values and sciences in his books, as well as diving into the works of Albertus Magnus and Paracelsus. My time was spent in immersing myself in natural philosophy and particularly chemistry. I became absorbed in my work, and I started to notice significant mental and emotional changes such as sadness and darkness in my thoughts. Ultimately, this led me to creating this piece of filth you see right in front of you.
Your Honor, he's cooking me!
Objection, you are not allowed to talk.
My point being made, Mr. Frankenstein here obtained vast amounts of knowledge which led him to become basically emotionally and mentally handicapped or incapable, which led to the unfair creation of Mr. Monster over there.
Understandable.
Which leads me to my second point. Would you like to inform us how you mentally, emotionally, and physically changed over those past 2 years?
I became very sad after I created the degenerate who killed my family. For a majority of those 2 years, I lamented existence. My every actions and thoughts were dark and negative. The events that followed the monster's creation scarred my life. I felt guilty for the deaths of my family and other innocent civilians that he killed. I entered a dark mental space for months thinking of the horror I brought to the people. I couldn't even think straight at all, and I could not enjoy life whatsoever.
So you're basically saying that you entered a state of mental depression and guilt. Therefore, you were emotionally and mentally compromised, leading to lack of decision-making skills and judgment. Your Honor, I rest my case.
God, you're incompetent! Hey! That's not my lawyer! We will take a 15-minute intermission. When we come back, the justice of the case will be decided.
Now for another ad.
Introducing Premium Human Body Parts by BBB LLC. With these body parts, you can create your very own clone. Obviously, it's not a self-replicate, but you can create it in 3 easy steps. Step 1, acquire the body. It doesn't have to be close. Step 2, get all the limbs, like this one. Apply them gently. Step 3, get a brain and a working head, and voila, you have your very own clone. Now what can you do with the clone? I'd be glad to tell you. With your clone, you can make him do literally anything you like. Cut the tree! Now! With your clone made from premium human parts, you can make it do unlimited work because of its very small diet. See? Cut this entire forest down. Break time, have a leap. Good, get back to work. But there are some problems, such as societal outcast. Order your human premium body parts now through BBB LLC. Down! It's a great investment and I'm sure you'll love it.
That's blasphemy, Mr. Marker.
Order! As the Supreme Judge of the BBB High Court, I've come to the decision today of the verdict. Viewing this story through a Marxist lens, I have convicted Mr. Frankenstein as guilty of abusing his creation by neglecting and disrespecting the monster. The Marxist lens has shown me how a privileged young bourgeoisie man has abused his power and created a monster that can be compared to a proletarian in capitalist societies. In fact, the monster is created with multiple parts that can even exemplify an assembly line in which these proletarians work on. The eventual uprising of the monster over Frankenstein is justified as it can be likened to a proletariat uprising over the oppressive bourgeoisie that feel that it is their right to obsess over material possessions. One can even prepare Victor Frankenstein's treatment of the monster as slavery, as Victor Frankenstein himself forces him to suffer through many hardships, including his encounter with the villagers, as well as neglect by the public. Because of these things, I hereby convict Victor Frankenstein guilty of abusing his creation.